November 21st, 1976, Ellis Auditorium, Memphis. 4,200 fans filled the seats, voices a rising tide of anticipation. Elvis Presley, the king himself, took the stage for what would become a legendary night. No one expected him to pause mid-song, cross the stage, and whisper words that would haunt one lonely fan and shock everyone present. The chill of November lingered in the Memphis air, swirling around the marquee lights of Ellis Auditorium. Outside, fans clustered on the streets, scarves and cameras clutched tight, voices blending into a murmuring anticipation. Inside, the arena hummed with a nervous, electric energy. Spotlights pierced through a haze of cigarette smoke, dancing over polished instruments and glittering stage scaffolds. The drums tapped a heartbeat. Guitars shimmered under amber lights, and backstage, Colonel Parker paced in muted tension, whispering last-minute directions to assistants hustling sheet music and cold drinks. Among the throng, one figure stood out, not for flamboyance, but for absence of anything at all. Timothy Hargrove, 17, wore a worn blue jacket, its fabric frayed and faded. His hands were empty, clutching nothing but hope, and his wide eyes scanned the faces around him. The crowd's excitement pressed in on him from every side, yet he felt utterly alone, a small figure swallowed by thousands. Would anyone notice him tonight? Could a moment from a stranger, one brief interaction, shift the trajectory of a lifetime? The band struck the opening chord, a tremor of sound rolling through the auditorium. Gasps, shouts, and applause merged into a tidal roar. Timothy felt it all hit his chest like a physical wave, heart hammering, as if the arena itself had drawn a deep breath. The light swung to him briefly, catching the blue jacket, catching the lone figure in the front row. The first note hit and everything changed in the very next heartbeat. Elvis's gaze found him, and nothing would ever be the same. Drum tap echoes the heartbeat of tension. Crowd hum rises and falls. Camera flash bursts. Soft rustle of scarves. Low ambient hum of anticipation. Midway through the haunting strains of unchained melody, the arena's energy shifted. Timothy's knees buckled silently beneath him, and in a heartbeat he crumpled to the floor at the very front row. The sudden drop sent a ripple of shock through the crowd. Dead silence fell over the 4,200 fans as eyes darted between him and the stage. Whispers bouncing like fragile glass across the seats. The arena went from a roar to a tense, hushed suspension, every footstep and gasp amplified. Security surged forward, boots pounding the polished floor, hands reaching to lift him before anyone else could react. The band faltered, the guitar's high notes trailing off into an uneasy pause, while the drums hung suspended in mid-beat. Elvis, mid-verse, froze his brow, furrowing, lips parted, the microphone still in his hand. The entire auditorium seemed to hold its collective breath. What happened next could define not just the night, but a moment in history. In that frozen second, Elvis scanned the sea of faces, catching the small, pale form of Timothy crumpled on the floor. He saw more than just a fainting fan. He saw vulnerability, isolation, and the quiet desperation of a teenager who had come hoping to be noticed. Backstage, Jane Reynolds, an assistant, whispered urgently to Colonel Parker. "Should we stop the show?" she asked, eyes wide. The colonel's lips pressed into a thin line. For a moment, it seemed the tension backstage mirrored the tension in the crowd. Fans craned forward, leaning against the barriers, breathless. Cameras captured every micro-expression, every flicker of emotion as murmurs began to swell into a low, anxious hum. The spotlight above wavered, catching the faint glint of a bootleg flyer clutched by a fan who had noticed Timothy's plight. And then came the decision. Elvis, a man known for discipline and showmanship, chose humanity over protocol. The microphone trembled slightly in his hand as he paused mid-verse, letting the silence stretch. Every eye in the arena focused on him, every ear strained to catch the next move. Could he continue performing as if nothing had happened, or would he step beyond the expectations of fame into a raw, vulnerable connection with the people before him? The weight of the moment pressed down, amplified by the hushed, expectant crowd. It was in that pregnant silence that the true test appeared, not of his talent, not of his celebrity, but of his compassion. Timothy lay on the floor, fragile and unnoticed by most, yet seen by the man who had drawn thousands into this shared ritual of music. Elvis's gaze lingered, searching, evaluating, before a subtle nod passed through him, an acknowledgement that this single life mattered as much as the thousands who roared. For the next chorus, Elvis's next move would defy protocol and leave an indelible mark on everyone present. Reflective questions. What would you do if fame demanded distance from human fragility? How often do we notice the quiet struggles of others amidst our own excitement and anticipation? Crowd hush deepens. Microphone hum as suspense builds. Soft strings underscore the frozen tension. Security boots echo through the silence. Subtle gasp of surrounding fans. Spotlight flicker emphasizes focus on Timothy. The arena hung in a suspended heartbeat. Stage lights flickered, bathing the front row in a wavering amber glow, as the 4,200-strong audience collectively held its breath. Security officers froze mid-step, unsure whether to lift Timothy forcibly or wait, their training conflicting with instinct. Whispers ricocheted across the rows, swelling into a nervous murmur that threatened to break into panic. Every eye in the auditorium darted between the stage and the prone figure, caught in the tension of a moment that teetered between routine and legend. Elvis stood center stage, the microphone still in hand, voice mid-note, yet suspended in time. The band's chord hung, incomplete, as if even the instruments were aware of the fragile moral choice being weighed. He scanned the crowd slowly, deliberately, each movement a silent command for patience, for observation, his gaze locked onto Timothy's pale, trembling figure. It was more than an unconscious teen. It was a human heartbeat exposed to the vulnerability of thousands of strangers. The audience, sensing a shift, leaned forward. Collective anticipation pressing on the walls of the arena. Colonel Parker's lips pressed tight, tension radiating through the sidelines. Should we stop the show? Jane Reynolds whispered again, voice trembling slightly under the spotlight's harsh glare. The decision weighed like a drumbeat in the hollow auditorium. If Elvis moved forward, would the crowd see it as intrusion or inspiration? Would compassion survive scrutiny in the face of fame? And, above all, what would Timothy feel if the spotlight found him in his most fragile state? Elvis took a measured step forward, boots clicking softly against the stage. The music swelled, hesitant, a ghost of the rhythm meant to carry the song, but now serving as a backdrop for something larger, something deeply human. Each eye followed him, every chest rose and fell with the rhythm of a single shared heartbeat. He leaned down, close enough for Timothy to hear, and whispered something inaudible to most. A soft murmur that contained both reassurance and recognition. Then, slowly, deliberately, he raised the teenager to his feet. a gentle hand supporting the youth with a care that defied both expectation and protocol. The crowd went from tension to awe in a breath. Gasps rippled like waves, applause hesitated, then grew in hesitant bursts. For a moment, it felt as if time itself had slowed the arena dead silent, save for the faint hum of the microphone and the rustle of scarves in trembling hands. Cameras caught every flicker of expression: Timothy's wide, tear-filled eyes, Elvis's calm, measured gaze, the security team's quiet relief. This wasn't performance. This was communion. Every soul in the auditorium understood that the king had chosen humanity over spectacle, and in doing so, had rewritten the night's narrative. A murmur of disbelief spread. Fans leaned toward one another, whispering, pointing, sharing the realization he wasn't just a performer. He was a man who, in front of thousands, chose empathy over routine, who transformed what could have been a moment of chaos into one of profound connection. It was a turning point, not just for Timothy, but for everyone witnessing it. Proofs that even in the glare of fame, one can act with courage, vulnerability, and compassion. And then, without warning, Elvis did something that would leave every heart in the arena forever changed. Reflective questions. How often do public figures choose humanity over performance? Could you make that choice under the scrutiny of thousands, knowing every move is magnified? How do you weigh protocol against compassion in moments that demand both? Stage lights flicker to emphasize suspense. Faint drum thrum mirrors heartbeat. Crowd hush deepens, then rises in waves. Soft strings underscore the tension, breaking into awe. Microphone hum punctuates every whispered syllable. Rustling scarves and excited gasps emphasize collective anticipation. Don't ever feel alone. Kid, Elvis whispered, his voice soft yet carrying across the hushed auditorium. The words were simple, almost fragile, yet seismic in their effect. Timothy's eyes widened, moisture gathering as the weight of recognition sank into him. In front of 4,200 witnesses, a legendary figure had chosen to acknowledge a single, overlooked life. The arena seemed to exhale collectively, the tension melting into a quiet awe. For a moment, applause hesitated, then trickled in shy bursts, like tentative raindrops on a summer stage. Elvis extended his hand fully, guiding Timothy to stand beside him. The teen's small frame trembled as he grasped it, a handshake that felt like a lifeline, a bridge between isolation and belonging. Cameras clicked, capturing the instant for eternity. Bootleggers and fans alike leaned forward, straining to catch every detail. The crowd, sensing something sacred unfolding, mirrored the quiet compassion with murmurs, soft gasps, and a ripple of applause that grew, hesitant at first, then swelling into a wave. Spotlights focused on the pair, emphasizing the human connection that had eclipsed every performance expectation. The band resumed, cautiously at first, but soon with full fervor, following Elvis's lead. Each chord now resonated differently, carrying the emotional weight of the moment. Timothy's posture shifted. The tension in his shoulders eased. He glanced out over the crowd, noticing nods, smiles, even tears. The audience's collective empathy mirrored his own, turning what could have been embarrassment into validation. A scarf floated down from a balcony, landing near him, and someone's bootleg flyer, previously clenched tight, was held aloft in a silent salute. Objects became symbols, each gesture amplified by the crowd's shared recognition. Short bursts of applause punctuated each line of the song. contrasting with the quieter moments where the arena seemed suspended in reverent silence. Elvis's eyes flicked to Timothy repeatedly, a subtle acknowledgement of the shift he had orchestrated from spectacle to shared humanity. The audience, previously drawn solely by admiration for a star, now participated in an intimate act of compassion. Every gasp, every whispered look at him, reinforced that this was not just a performance, but a transformation witnessed by thousands. What Timothy felt in that instant would define decades, shaping how he saw himself and the world around him. Reflective questions. Could one small act of kindness transform an entire community? Have you ever witnessed quiet heroism that reshaped the energy of a room? Can a single moment change your perception of fame and human connection? Microphone hum blends with soft strings. Crowd hush punctuated by tentative applause. Camera flashes highlight Timothy's expressions. Rustling scarves signal recognition from the audience. Short bursts of cheering contrast with prolonged silence to emphasize emotional rhythm. Spotlight intensifies on pair to anchor audience focus by the final chord. The arena erupted not in the usual frenzy, but in a wave of shared recognition. The applause was no longer just for Elvis's voice or presence. It was for the moment he had created, for the young fan who had been seen. Timothy, standing beside the king, felt a warmth that had nothing to do with lights or music. He was part of something larger, a living testament to the power of empathy witnessed by 4,200 hearts. Fans leaned over barriers, offering scarves, shaking cameras in excitement, waving handmade signs. A poster, hastily painted by a fan in the balcony, was pinned to the stage by another audience member, declaring simply, "You are seen." Volunteers moved swiftly, inspired, organizing support for lonely youth across Memphis. The energy of the arena, once solely focused on the performer, now included every individual, every act of quiet compassion amplified into collective participation. The community was no longer passive. It had become a visible, audible force, carrying Timothy's story forward in real time. Backstage, Colonel Parker allowed a rare, uncharacteristic smile to spread across his face. Jane Reynolds whispered, "He's changed the night forever," and for once, her words needed no elaboration. Elvis lingered on stage, giving space to the crowd and to Timothy, letting the moment breathe. Every eye traced their silhouettes. Every heart felt the resonance of a simple act that had transcended expectation. The King's Choice pause, acknowledge, elevate had transformed a routine concert into an enduring narrative of human connection. The auditorium seemed to pulse in unison, energy rising and falling like waves. Fans who had come for music found themselves witnesses to a story, one that carried beyond melody and rhythm. Every scarf tossed, every bootleg flyer held aloft, every whispered comment was part of an emergent tapestry of empathy. Timothy's laughter, tentative at first, mingled with the crowd's rising cheers. The arena had shifted from a space of performance to a space of community, a living testament to the impact of noticing, acknowledging, and elevating another human being for the first time that night. Timothy felt a complete absence of loneliness. In front of thousands, he had become both symbol and participant. The transformation extended beyond the front row, rippling through balconies and aisles, inspiring whispered conversations and newfound compassion among strangers. The audience became collaborators in a story bigger than the music, a story that would echo in conversations, letters, and conventions for decades. And the echoes of that night didn't stop in the auditorium. they spread far beyond Memphis, touching lives in ways no one could yet imagine. Reflective questions. When have you seen a single act ripple outward into change? Could your own small gesture create a wave of empathy in your community? What does it mean to truly witness someone and allow them to feel seen? Crowd waves of applause contrast with hushed moments. Soft strings underscore the growing emotional resonance. Spotlight on Timothy and Elvis emphasizes central human connection. Rustling scarves, faint shouts, and camera flashes punctuate the evolving community energy. Rhythmic swell of ovation to punctuate transformation. The next morning, Memphis woke to a story that would echo for decades. Newspapers carried grainy black and white shots. Elvis and the Lonely Fan, the headline capturing the essence of a night that had transcended performance. Bootleg recordings, once exchanged in secret, began circulating more widely, each listener catching the whispered words that had shifted the evening from spectacle to intimate humanity. Fans who had been present recounted the event with reverent detail, each memory slightly different, yet all carrying the same emotional truth. Backstage, a small plaque would later appear at Ellis Auditorium, discreet but poignant, engraved with a simple message: "No one is invisible when music speaks." It became a quiet shrine to empathy, a tangible reminder that even legends could illuminate ordinary lives. Timothy Hargrove, now forever etched into the story of Elvis's legacy, would recount the memory at fan conventions, interviews, and informal gatherings, his voice still caught, eyes still shimmering, as he described a moment a king bent rules and protocol to acknowledge a single heart. The arena, the crowd, and the music had all conspired to create a memory that was larger than the sum of its parts. Bootleg flyers, tattered scarves, and photographs became artifacts of the night, tangible proof that what happened was not merely a fleeting performance but a human milestone. Fans wrote letters, others told stories that inspired new acts of kindness, each ripple extending far beyond the stage of Ellis Auditorium. Even those who had not attended felt its reach. The story of one young fan being seen by a legendary performer offered hope, a model of compassion that transcended fame. Timothy's life trajectory subtly shifted as well. The validation, the recognition, and the gentle acknowledgement of his presence instilled a quiet confidence. Friends recalled him more. Strangers later recognized him at fan gatherings, and he shared the tale with a measured humility. His story became a reference point for how a single act, performed in front of thousands, could resonate across time, space, and generations. For the fans, the lesson was no less profound. They realized that attending a concert could be more than entertainment. It could be witness to a profound human act. The narrative of Elvis as merely a king of rock and roll expanded to include the king of quiet compassion. That night, music had not only entertained, but also inspired a collective reflection on kindness, presence, and acknowledgement, and the lesson endured far beyond Memphis, whispering through the decades, reminding every listener and fan that greatness is measured in connection, not just applause. Reflective questions: what defines true legacy talent, fame, or empathy? How can one small act echo across communities and generations? In a world full of spectators, how often do we pause to truly see someone? Low hum of morning Memphis streets, archival photo flashes, soft piano underscore for reflective moments, bootleg audio snippets fade in briefly, crowd murmurs overlaid as memory play back, ambient echoes of applause layered for nostalgia. Elvis Presley's night at Ellis Auditorium had ended, but the resonance of one simple act lingered far longer than the final notes. He had reminded thousands, and one lonely teenager in particular, that greatness is not measured by applause, by ticket sales, or by the size of the crowd, but by the choices made when no one expects them. One whispered sentence, a gentle hand extended, had shifted the emotional landscape of an entire arena and echoed through decades of memory. Timothy Hargrove carried that moment as a touchstone for his life, a reminder that acknowledgement and compassion are currencies more valuable than fame or fortune. And the audience, having witnessed this quiet heroism, returned home changed, contemplating how they might replicate the courage, patience, and kindness they had just observed. The story of a legendary performer and a lonely fan became a moral blueprint, illustrating how even amid spectacle, humanity can shine brighter than any spotlight. The arena itself became more than a stage. It transformed into a symbol of collective empathy. The plaque backstage, the tattered scarf, the bootleg flyerall served as reminders that every life matters, that every act of noticing another can ripple into unseen yet powerful consequences. Fans carried these memories into classrooms, living rooms, and conversations, spreading the understanding that small gestures of recognition can alter trajectories. This night, Memphis learned something timeless. In the quiet pause between notes, in the space between performance and protocol, a king had bridged the gap between fame and intimacy. In doing so, he had taught an enduring lesson that compassion is as powerful and memorable as any song, and that acknowledgement, even in its simplest form, can forge legacies that outlast even the most dazzling performances. Elvis's action that night became a whisper across generations, a subtle yet indelible mark that reminded everyone that empathy is not an add-on to greatness, it is its truest measure. The story was not only about a star and a fan, it was about the human heartbeat beneath the sequins and lights, about what endures when the curtain falls and the crowd has gone home. How often do we measure our own lives in the currency of applause versus the impact of compassion? What small act today could leave a legacy that resonates decades from now? Could you be the bridge between someone's isolation and the warmth of acknowledgement? If one whisper could change a fan's life, what small act could you offer today? Share a moment of unexpected compassion with someone who might feel invisible and keep the ripple of kindness alive. Your gesture, however quiet, could echo farther than you imagine.